everyone, welcome to day 5 of the Baha'i Fast live meditation series. Super excited to be back. Hope everyone is doing well. So today we are going to have an interesting conversation. Ray, I'm gonna actually say that maybe in today's talk I might not address you directly. I might just use this as a general share because we have just met over the internet and I'm not able to see your eye contact when I have this conversation, so I don't know how you'll feel about it. And yeah, this might be a conversation that may make some people uncomfortable, including yourself, so I don't really know. So that's why I just wanted to preface it that I'm going to address everyone in this conversation. And that is, this morning I made a realization for the first time that you know, like usually the pattern of 19 days of meditation, like the first 3 days are usually about the physical body. Like your body is cleansing itself, it's purifying itself, it's like getting rid of all the things, the toxins. And then it kind of, after like fourth or third day, like everyone might be like 1 or 2 days like kind of delayed. This is just a pattern that I've observed, that we're moving into the energy body. So energies that are surging up in us are coming up to 4, and so the third would be the mental and emotional layers of the body. And then the fourth is the witness body. And the 5th is the bliss body. So basically in the 19 days of fast, usually we hang around these 3 bodies for a couple days. I remember in 2018's newsletter, these sort of sensations were coming up around day 4 or 5. Like, so yesterday and today, kind of like both is when your energies are kind of like surging up. And what that means is energies of all kind. Like your energetics is being cleansed, and also like your sexual urges might be arising at this time too. So we can't talk about a cleanse of any kind without talking about cleansing spiritual energy. And so this is not a topic, I'm well aware, that the Baha'i community has been able to have openly, at least not in the 7 communities that I've lived in before in different countries. So I think this is maybe a little bit of a challenge, but I think it's one that's so then you're also not given tools to be able to uphold those laws, right? And definitely in my case, I had no adults that were open about this subject matter to be able to guide me in any way. And I think this is really for like anyone. So this is not just going to be a new topic. This is probably going to be a bit of a shocking topic for everyone, but it's also what I found and sexual desires. And so something that I wanted to share a perspective to everyone is that, we're not often trained, at least in the Baha'i community, as much as, like, let's say, for instance, in Buddhism or in yoga, like, being observant of what is going on in your mind as an observer, to just watch it, like, things pop up and pass by. These are things that kind of, like, are not really taught to how do we deal with the mind when we have, like, a flash of insight, or like a flash of something that we might be perceiving as inappropriate or not spiritual, or it's a dirty thought. So something that was really helpful in my deep dive of learning about what these, like, little pop-up things are of thought forms in our mind is that basically, got disconnected for a bit, is basically these thought forms, when they come into our mind, how do we address it and look at it? So I just wanted to share a yogic perspective that has been really helpful for me. So in yoga, the sexual energy comes from the reproductive organs, the second chakra. So it's between your sit bones and your navel. So, like, in the middle there. This is where usually the uterus is held. It's also, or like where the ovaries are. And it's also where the testes, like, descend from for a male. And so it's the same, like, the testes and the ovaries are, like, the same equivalent for men and women. So that region of the body is, like, where your reproductive organs are. So all of your energy of creativity is housed in that region. And so in yoga, this energy or, like, two people joining in a particular way. It's important to actually really take note of that image. Usually when we get an image like that, we're like, no, or like, or we start judging ourselves, saying that we're not spiritual, or, like, you start feeling shame, guilt, or whatever narrative was that you were raised with around the subject matter, right? Usually it's a resistance of some kind. You're pushing it away, you're trying to push it down, you're trying to suppress it. And so this is a healthy surge of energy to come up, is something that's natural, that is actually a sign of health. However, when we suppress it in any way, like try to, like, I don't know what this game is, but, just basically whack-a-mole it down, it only just builds up, and, like, basically the lid, like, falls off at some point, right? What is that if this is an energy that is coming up, we need to channel it in a way, right? We need to channel this energy in some way. Usually, people have this surge of energy and they go do something about it. They go and see someone and be with someone, or they go and maybe satisfy themselves in some way, which is also a release of this energy. Both of these forms are forms of release. Rarely do people actually know to hone this energy to go create something useful, which is the same energy, right? So whenever we get this flash of insight, your mind is kind of like sending you a signal that you are wanting to create something. You are wanting to bring something into life, whether that be an object, a thought, an idea, or a baby. You know, like it could be all these things. But what your mind will do is show you, in terms of the layers of what creativity is. The human soul is here, objects is here, ideas, projects, things are like in the middle, right? So this is like, there's a hierarchy of, in terms of like creativity and like what is actually bringing the invisible to the visible world, right? So when we think about it, if your mind is trying to give you a signal to be able to create something in this world, wouldn't you agree that the mind will give you its highest form of creativity, image of creativity, so that you can, as a signal that, yo, my soul wants to create something, right? So it kind of makes sense that whenever these flash of whatever comes to our mind, is that to train our minds that, oh, to actually be super curious about it when it arises, and not to feel shame, not to feel guilt, and to know that if the fast is doing its thing and its appropriate thing, which is it just finished clearing out the first 3 days of the physical toxins, it's going to move into the energy layer of cleansing that energy layer. So it would be only natural, if it's doing its proper thing, that it would start cleansing your ideas and thoughts about the energy layer of the body. So something that I would like to invite everyone to do, perhaps this fast, is that if we think of these thought forms, like these like dirty ideas come to our mind, is first to actually identify it, recognize it, and actually get curious about what exactly you're seeing, or whatever image it was. Because sometimes these images are very pure in its purest form. Others are not as pure. Like they are aggressive, or they are not respectful, or all of that. The positioning, I would like you to like maybe even pause to just notice what specific dirty thought are you having, because that will even help guide you into the specificity of what your soul is trying to guide you to create specifically. So if it had something to do with the throat, perhaps it was something to do with expression. You want to creatively express yourself. Sorry, started cleaning my glasses. The connection got disconnected. Forgot where I was saying. But essentially, when we're thinking of these like thought forms that come up, is to first take a moment to recognize what exactly you're imagining. What is happening? Non-judgmentally. Just take a look at it from its sexual positioning or sexual act. Whether it's the throat, if it's the throat, you know, maybe this is like a power of expression that you want to make, or like if it's like a physical sort of representation that you see, like maybe it's a desire of wanting to connect with someone, just even in a conversation, or maybe even want to actually want to make a baby. So these thoughts, like really paying attention to what it is something that I don't think as Baha'is we even take that step to have this conversation of being able to prepare you to channel this energy through, right? We really need to like actually like move it through somehow. So my recommendation is, I'm really hoping that there are youth amongst us who are watching this, because I really think that this would be like such a helpful tool and understanding to have and give to our youth. So if anyone is watching this and they know of youth and they're like shy to have this conversation, allow me to have that conversation. Send them to this video so that they can watch it, and they're welcome. You guys are free to ask me any questions you like. I am open to it. So because I really think we don't do a good job at all with assisting our youth with this subject matter, which I believe is so important. In fact, learning yoga perhaps has made me think it even more. But you know, in the Baha'i writings, we're not really, it's very brief. The law is very simple. And I really, when you start exploring other spiritual thoughts and how they describe it, you really are grateful of how short the description and no reasoning provided by Baha'u'llah in the Kitab ʻAlá'علاء. I would say that having explored other thoughts, it's really helped me appreciate Baha'u'llah's law even more deeply. And I'm very grateful that he did not go into detail of explaining this law. Not that he had to, of course, he's the messenger of God. But it was, I understood that it was an act of mercy not to go into the details of what would happen if a transgression were to occur, because I think that would be a conversation that would be way worse in terms of shame, guilt, and other things. So thank God in the Baha'i writings we don't have explanations like this. But essentially we need to be responsible for our thoughts, right? Whether you are in a marriage, you're not in a marriage, these skills of when you have this sort of fantasy or vain imaginings that come up, what to do about it, or how to perceive it in a way that is actually helpful and that can really help serve your life, which really, I believe this is one of them. So what I ask of you, to invite you to do, perhaps this fast, is to think about your thoughts, one, and to notice whether or not these thoughts are bubbling up in your mind right now, and first to not judge, not to shame yourself, not to go into guilt, but then to look actually deeper, look at what is being shown to you, and then look at perhaps previous conversations you've had with other people about this topic and the effect that has had on you and your It leads quite nicely to today's spiritual virtues of the day and the weekday in particular. Both of them really. So the day today is Nur, light. We're going to be shedding some light on this layer of the body and the energy body. And the day of the week is Istiqlál, which is independence. So this was a very much an independent thought form that I had to go and look into because no one around me was comfortable talking about it, which meant that I was put in the dark, which meant, thankfully, thank God, I was very much protected in various aspects of this. But I think if we were to be sharing these tools a lot more openly with each other, we would be able to live through life like much more effectively. And so when it comes to Baha'is and investigating the truth, please take this seriously. It's not a small thing that we have to investigate the truth. So anything you want to know, go and look into it and to see how you can be of assistance to yourself with that. So when we're thinking about, so now we're going to move into the meditation portion. So we have Nur as the day, Istiqlál as the weekday, and we have ʻAlá'علاء, loftiness, impressiveness in proportion and scale. So let us sit in a comfortable seated posture and keep our spine straight, hands up or down, welcome to. And actually something I wanted to mention is that I remember when my brother, he was diagnosed with cancer. We're very fortunate that he's been able to recover and do amazing things. But when he was going through chemo, his physician told him to begin meditating. And once he started meditating, he was the one who introduced meditation to me. And he was like, "No, why don't you try meditation?" So I tried it. And I remember the first thing, and this was like several years ago. It was over like 10 years ago. A little less, like 8 or 9. And the first thing I felt when I sat down to meditate was arousal. And this is something that like people are not comfortable sharing. And so I say this out loud for you because I was this close to stopping right there. I was like, "Brother, why would you give me something that is like making me feel like so much worse than I'm trying to like suppress all these feelings, and then like meditation is making me more heightened of this?" He's like, "It's okay." And this was so helpful to actually be reflected by this, because he's like, "It's okay, because what meditation only does is to show you what is on the uppermost layer of your mind," which at the time I was a youngster, so that was of course the uppermost on my mind. So, but then once you get past that, there are other things much deeper, of course, but you kind of go through a thick layers of whatever you're suppressing. It's in order of what you're suppressing that is going to be the first. So whatever you're meditating on, the first layers, that's going to be the things that are going to first pop up in your mind during meditation. So I really wanted to share this because this is where people stop. This is usually where people stop meditating, because they're like meditating to become more spiritual, but then they sit down to meditate and realize they're not. Or how much they are not, or they're confronted with those thoughts and those ideas, and they're thinking, "I don't want to there's a new thing that's going to come up." And so the longer that we stay with it, I would really think that like maybe in day 1 or 2, I hit a nerve with someone and they just stopped. And maybe they actually needed to hear today's talk, you know? So I can really see how that may be something that people really need to hear. Whatever practice it is, just stick with it. Because with meditation especially, it only helps you to process things and purify and clarify these sort of thought forms that really agitate us sometimes and bring us down, and we think, "Oh my God, like, thank God my thoughts are held secret," you know, and other people can't hear it, because had people only known what I think about, then, you know, like they would not think of me so great, or, you know, like, but these thoughts come up in everyone's minds. If they're not talking about it, they're just not talking about it. So that's something that you can really be sure of. And so we are going to, with that in mind, bearing that in mind, that if any thought forms like this arise during meditation, we know we're already chilled. We got it. We know how to deal with it. So today we're going to do Noor. So please sit in a comfortable seated posture. I don't know what this is. There's a banner showing up. But say hi if you're watching. Please let me know where you're from. Would love to hear. And okay, so closing our eyes, focusing on our breath. Focusing on your inhales and on your exhales. Bringing your attention inwards. We're going to focus our physical body in light, Dowsit. What would the body look like in light? And let's see, there's many definitions of light, right? Light in terms of weight, mass, and light in terms of rays of light, like ray. So you're welcome to first go through the first. Apologies, I had my eyes closed, so I didn't see that it stopped. So I don't know where it ended. But we're moving on to light within the body, rays of light, what that looks like in the physical, in objects, like what would a radiant, light-filled physical thing look like. This could be an object, or this could be the body. And then moving on to energy. So this is, in yoga, they call this the subtle body, which is kind of like a cloud that is extending 1.5 meters around you. And see how we can, with the spiritual qualities of light, we can purify the energy of this layer of the body. Notice a bright, bright, white, golden light penetrating into all this energetic cloud that extends 1.5 meters around us in all directions, up, down, left, right, in a circular globe. And then moving to our mental and emotional layer of the body and noticing the spiritual qualities of light. What does light emotions mean? An emotion that is filled with light, or a mind that is filled with light. A mind that is bright with the spiritual qualities of light. You can even imagine a bright globe light right around your brain, your head, to like almost like feel like you're filling your head, your mind, your mental thoughts with light. If you had a headache before, you might even notice that this exercise might. And with the spiritual quality of light in your work and your purpose, how would that manifest itself? What would a work filled with light look like? What would a purpose filled with light, the spiritual quality of light, look like? In both definitions, both in weight and in rays of light. Moving to our weekday spiritual virtue, which is Istiqlál, independence. What would independence in the physical body look like? In objects, what would the quality of independence look like? What would it look like? What would it sound like? What would it smell like? What would it taste like? If you were to touch something independent, what would it feel like? Moving to the energy body, what would the quality of an independent energy look like? Oh, I got cut out. Okay, so moving back into our independence. Independence, and we're on the energy layer of the body, talking about independent. What would an independent energy look like? And then moving on to the mind. What would an independent mind look like? Or an independent emotion look like? And I think this is like a quality that can really be used during this pandemic, because it's such a collective thing that it may be difficult to have an independent thought about it. To be discerning whether it is your thoughts or other people's projections and fears spewed onto you. This distance, this independence of mind, that in the writings it's actually a prerequisite in terms of understanding what the Baha'i writings are, is you need to be independent in spirit. So important. So it's like when we're reading the Baha'i writings, to have this independence in our approach to reading it, and not like eating other people's regurgitation of the writings and giving it to us and telling us what it means and thoughts. Even for myself, like as I'm speaking to you and sharing you these thoughts, these are all things that you need to take back into your mind or your mouth and like chew on it and see how you feel about it. And using that independent spirit to discern what is true for you. And the best is always to go back to the writings and to read it again. So that's the ultimate. So moving into independence, if you were to observe it outside of you, if independence as a spiritual quality was outside of you, what would you witness? What would you recognize? Have you ever noticed someone who was so independent in spirit that what were the thoughts that came up to your mind? Was fear maybe one of them? Because they were so independent, they didn't really care about anyone else's thoughts, and that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that. Or, like what would you witness if you were to witness independence? And then moving on to work, being independent at work. I think this is usually written in our job descriptions. That we're always looking for someone who's able to be independent, self-motivated, able to work for and with themselves. What does the spiritual quality of independence look like in your purpose? If you knew in your heart and hearts that this is something that you were meant to do, but then other people are giving their inputs, and then you're like, no, or like you have despair, like, is that really exercising the independence of spirit? Sitting in silence for a couple minutes. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to be.